America's most addictive foods. At first, it sounds like clickbait until you realize scientists have spent decades studying why certain foods are almost impossible to stop eating. Have you ever opened a bag of potato chips, planning to eat just a handful, only to look down a few minutes later and realize the bag was empty? Maybe you've promised yourself that today's lunch would be healthy, but somehow the smell of fresh pizza changed your mind. Or perhaps you've told yourself just one cookie, only to find yourself reaching for a second, then a third, without even thinking. Most people blame themselves. They say it's a lack of willpower, a lack of discipline, a bad habit. But what if that's only part of the story? What if some of the foods millions of Americans eat every single day are so enjoyable that your brain responds to them in a way that makes stopping genuinely difficult? Today, we're uncovering America's most addictive foods and the fascinating science behind why your brain keeps asking for another bite. You'll discover how everyday ingredients influence the brain's reward system, why some foods seem impossible to resist, and what researchers have learned about the eating habits of millions of people. And here's something surprising. The foods we're about to explore aren't rare or unusual. They're sitting in grocery stores, fast food restaurants, office vending machines, school cafeterias, and kitchen cupboards across America. Chances are you've eaten several of them this week, but before we reveal which foods top the list, we need to answer one important question. Can food really be addictive? For years, scientists debated that very idea. Unlike nicotine or alcohol, food is something every human needs to survive. You can't simply stop eating forever. That makes studying cravings far more complicated. Researchers aren't asking whether food itself is a drug. Instead, they're trying to understand why certain combinations of ingredients seem to trigger much stronger cravings than others. Over the past 2 decades, neuroscientists, nutrition researchers, and psychologists have found that some highly processed foods can activate the brain's reward pathways far more intensely than simple whole foods. These foods are often rich in combinations of sugar, fat, salt, and refined carbohydrates, ingredients that make them especially satisfying to eat. Scientists even have a term for many of these products: hyper-palatable foods. These foods aren't necessarily dangerous because of a single ingredient. What makes them remarkable is the way several ingredients work together to create a taste and texture that's incredibly rewarding. Crunchy, creamy, salty, sweet, crispy, soft, sometimes all in the same bite. And that's where this story becomes even more interesting, because the goal isn't simply to make food taste good. The real challenge is creating a product that's enjoyable enough that people want to buy it again and again and again. So how does your brain decide when enough is enough? And why does that decision sometimes seem to disappear the moment you open your favorite snack? To answer that, we need to travel inside the most powerful food machine ever created, the human brain. Imagine your brain as a control center, constantly making thousands of decisions every single day. It tells your heart when to beat, your lungs when to breathe, and even influences what foods you crave. But hidden deep inside this incredible organ is a reward system that has helped humans survive for thousands of years. Long before grocery stores, food delivery apps, or fast food restaurants existed, finding enough food wasn't easy. Early humans often spent hours or even days searching for something to eat. So when they finally found foods rich in calories, especially those containing natural sugars or healthy fats, the brain rewarded that behavior. It released a chemical called dopamine. Contrary to popular belief, dopamine isn't simply the pleasure chemical. It's better described as the brain's motivation signal. It tells you that was important. Remember it. Do it again. Thousands of years ago, this system helped humans survive. Today, it still works exactly the same way. The difference is that our environment has changed dramatically. Instead of searching forests for berries or hunting for dinner, we're surrounded by shelves filled with brightly packaged snacks, sugary drinks, desserts, and fast foods, all available within minutes. And many of these foods are carefully designed to deliver something scientists call hyperpalatability. What does that mean? Imagine eating a plain boiled potato. It's satisfying, but after one or two, you're probably full. Now compare that to a bag of flavored potato chips. They're crispy, salty, slightly sweet, rich in fat. Every bite crunches in just the right way. Before you know it, you've eaten half the bag, and your hand is already reaching for another chip. That's not an accident. Food scientists have spent decades studying how different combinations of sugar, salt, fat, and texture affect the human brain. Their goal isn't to make food impossible to resist. Their goal is to make food enjoyable enough that people want to buy it again. One concept often discussed in food science is something called the bliss point. The bliss point is the balance where sweetness, saltiness, richness, and flavor become especially appealing to many people. Too little, and the food tastes bland. Too much, and it becomes becomes overwhelming. But right in the middle is a combination that many people find extremely satisfying. That's why some foods seem to disappear almost by themselves, not because they're magical, not because your self-control suddenly vanished, but because your brain is responding exactly as it evolved to respond to highly rewarding foods. Of course, not everyone reacts the same way. Genetics, habits, sleep, stress, and overall diet all influence cravings. But researchers agree on one thing: some foods activate the brain's reward system much more strongly than others. So the real question isn't whether cravings exist. The real question is, which foods trigger them the most? The answers might surprise you, because the first food on our list is sitting in millions of American kitchens right now, and chances are you've eaten it more times than you can count: potato chips. So, which food deserves the first spot? Surprisingly, it isn't chocolate, it isn't pizza, and it isn't ice cream. According to multiple research studies on eating behavior, one of the foods people struggle to stop eating the most is something far simpler: potato chips. Think about the last time you opened a bag. Did you carefully count 10 chips and put the bag away? Or did you keep reaching inside until you suddenly realized there were only crumbs left? That experience is so common that psychologists even have a phrase for it: the can't stop effect. But why? Unlike many snacks, potato chips combine several powerful qualities at once. They're rich in fat, packed with salt, and made from refined carbohydrates. Add their light, crispy texture, and every bite delivers a satisfying crunch that your brain quickly learns to enjoy. Then there's something researchers call sensory-specific satiety. Normally, when you eat the same flavor over and over, your brain gradually loses interest, but flavored chips constantly introduce tiny changes in taste, saltiness, and aroma, keeping each handful exciting enough that your brain doesn't get bored as quickly. And here's another surprising detail: most chips seem incredibly filling because they take up so much space inside the bag, but much of that space is simply air, protecting the chips during transport. Once you start eating, you're consuming far more calories than you might realize in just a few handfuls. That's one reason it's so easy to underestimate how much you've eaten. But potato chips aren't alone. The next food has become one of America's most iconic comfort meals: pizza. Pizza seems simple: bread, cheese, tomato sauce, and toppings. Yet scientists believe it's one of the most rewarding combinations ever created. Why? Because it brings together nearly everything the brain enjoys in one meal. The crust provides refined carbohydrates that break down quickly during digestion. The cheese contributes fat, creaminess, and a rich savory flavor known as umami. Many sauces contain a touch of sweetness to balance the acidity of tomatoes, while cured meats like pepperoni add salt and even more fat. Each bite delivers multiple flavors and textures at exactly the same time: the crispy crust, the stretchy cheese, the savory toppings, the warm aroma. It's a combination that stimulates several of your senses at once, making pizza one of the most satisfying foods for many people. And then there's the way pizza is usually eaten. Rarely does someone bake an entire pizza with the intention of eating only one slice. Family dinners, parties, sporting events, and movie nights all encourage larger portions without people consciously thinking about it. Before long, one slice becomes two, two becomes four, and suddenly you've eaten far more than you planned. But if you think pizza is difficult to resist, the next food doesn't just satisfy cravings. For many people, it becomes a daily habit they can't imagine living without. And unlike chips or pizza, millions of Americans drink it every single day. If you guess that the next food is soda, you're right. Unlike chips or pizza, soda doesn't need to make you feel full. In fact, that's part of what makes it so easy to consume. A single can contain around 10 teaspoons of sugar, depending on the brand and variety. Because it's a liquid, your body often doesn't register those calories the same way it does calories from solid foods. You can drink hundreds of calories in just a few minutes and still feel ready for a full meal afterward. But it's not just the sugar. The bubbles, the cold temperature, the sweetness, and the carefully balanced acidity all work together to create a refreshing sensation that encourages another sip and then another. Some studies suggest that sugary drinks may not satisfy hunger as effectively as whole foods, which is one reason health experts often recommend limiting them. Today, many people choose lower sugar or zero sugar options, but understanding what's in your drink is still an important part of making informed choices. Now, let's move to something that's been loved for thousands of years: chocolate. Chocolate isn't just a dessert, it's an experience. The moment it begins to melt on your tongue, your brain starts processing several sensations at once: sweetness, creaminess, rich aroma, smooth texture. Every bite creates a combination that many people find deeply satisfying. Milk chocolate, in particular, combines sugar and fat in a way that makes it especially enjoyable for many consumers. Dark Chocolate offers a different balance, with a richer cocoa flavor and less sugar, but both can trigger cravings depending on personal taste. And here's something fascinating. Researchers have found that anticipation plays a huge role in enjoyment. Sometimes the excitement of expecting chocolate activates the brain's reward system, even before the first bite reaches your mouth. That's why simply seeing your favorite chocolate bar at the checkout counter can suddenly make you want it, even if you weren't thinking about chocolate a few seconds earlier. But if chocolate melts in your mouth, the next food melts in an entirely different way. Ice cream. Cold, sweet, creamy. Few foods combine texture and flavor as successfully as ice cream. As it slowly melts, the flavors spread across your taste buds, creating a rich sensory experience that keeps every spoonful interesting. Whether it's vanilla, cookies and cream, chocolate fudge, or caramel swirl, ice cream often layers sweetness with creamy fat and exciting mix-ins like cookie pieces, brownie chunks, or chocolate chips. Every bite feels slightly different from the last, which helps maintain your interest. And then there's the emotional side. For many people, ice cream isn't just food. It's connected to birthdays, vacations, celebrations, childhood memories, and family traditions. Those positive memories can make cravings even stronger because the brain begins linking the food with comfort and happiness. Scientists sometimes call this emotional eating, when food becomes associated with feelings rather than physical hunger. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your favorite treats from time to time. The key is recognizing when you're eating because you're hungry, and when you're eating because your brain is chasing a familiar reward. But if you think these foods are difficult to resist, the next ones are even more surprising because they often appear on breakfast tables, in office kitchens, and inside lunchboxes across America. Yet many people never realize just how carefully engineered they are. By now, you've probably noticed a pattern. The foods we've discussed all have one thing in common. They combine ingredients and textures in ways that make them incredibly satisfying. But the next foods on our list are even more surprising because many people don't think of them as treats. Let's start with one that's impossible to ignore: donuts. Walk past a bakery early in the morning and you'll smell them before you even see them. That warm, sweet aroma isn't just pleasant, it's one of the first signals your brain uses to build anticipation. Then comes the first bite, a soft, fluffy center, a sugary glaze, sometimes filled with cream or jam. Every layer delivers something different. Sugar provides immediate sweetness, fat creates richness, and refined flour gives donuts their light, airy texture. Together, they create a food that's incredibly rewarding to eat, but not especially filling, making it surprisingly easy to reach for another. Now compare that to cookies. Cookies seem harmless because they're small. One cookie doesn't feel like much, but that's exactly why they're so easy to overeat. Many packaged cookies are designed with the perfect balance of sweetness, crunch, and richness. Chocolate chips, caramel pieces, or creamy fillings add even more variety, keeping each bite exciting instead of repetitive. Researchers have found that foods offering multiple textures and flavors often hold our attention longer than foods with a single, simple taste. Your brain enjoys novelty, and cookies provide just enough variation to keep you reaching back into the package. Next comes a food that's become a symbol of modern convenience: fast food burgers. Burgers aren't addictive because of one secret ingredient. It's the combination that matters. A soft toasted bun, a juicy beef patty, melted cheese, tangy sauces, pickles for acidity, crisp lettuce. Each ingredient is enjoyable on its own, but together they create layers of flavor and texture that stimulate multiple senses at once. And there's another factor many people overlook: speed. In today's world, you can satisfy a craving within minutes. You don't have to prepare ingredients, cook a meal, or wait very long. Convenience makes these foods even more appealing, especially during busy days when quick decisions often replace thoughtful ones. Finally, there's one category that surprises many people: breakfast cereals. Not every cereal belongs in this conversation. Many whole grain cereals can be part of a balanced diet, but some highly sweetened cereals are formulated to be extremely appealing, especially to children. Bright colors, crunchy textures, sweet coatings, fun shapes. Even the sound of cereal crunching has been studied because texture plays a bigger role in enjoyment than most people realize. And unlike eggs or oatmeal, sugary cereals may leave some people feeling hungry again sooner, especially if they're low in protein and fiber. But here's the most important takeaway from everything we've covered: no single food is automatically bad. A slice of pizza won't ruin your health. A donut won't change your life overnight. A handful of chips isn't the problem. What matters most is how often, how much, and what your overall eating pattern looks like. So if these foods aren't the real enemy, then what is? The answer isn't hidden inside a bag of chips or a bottle of soda. It's hidden in the choices we make every single day. And that's where this story takes its most important turn. So, after everything we've explored, one question remains: are these foods actually addictive? The honest answer is, it's more complicated than a simple yes or no. Unlike cigarettes or alcohol, food is essential for survival. Every human being needs to eat. That's why scientists are careful with the term food addiction. The debate is still ongoing, and researchers continue to study how certain foods affect the brain. What they do agree on is this: some ultra-processed foods can trigger cravings far more intensely than whole foods because they're engineered to be exceptionally rewarding. That doesn't mean everyone who eats them becomes addicted. It means they're easier to overconsume, especially when they're inexpensive, heavily marketed, and available almost everywhere. Think about your average day. You stop for gas and see shelves filled with candy and chips. You scroll through your phone and see advertisements for burgers or pizza. You walk into a supermarket and the first displays often feature colorful snacks or soft drinks. At the checkout counter, chocolate bars and cookies are placed within arm's reach. These choices aren't random. Companies want their products to be visible because visibility increases the chance that someone will buy them. That's a common marketing strategy across many industries, not just food. But here's the encouraging part: your brain is incredibly adaptable. Just as it learns habits, it can also learn new ones. Research suggests that gradually reducing highly processed foods, eating more protein and fiber, getting enough sleep, staying physically active, and planning balanced meals can help many people manage cravings over time. These aren't overnight solutions, but they are practical steps that support healthier eating patterns. And perhaps the most powerful habit of all: pay attention. Notice when you're eating because you're genuinely hungry. Notice when you're eating because you're stressed, bored, tired, or simply because the food is sitting in front of you. That small moment of awareness can completely change your relationship with food. This documentary isn't about telling you to never eat pizza again or to throw away every bag of chips in your kitchen. Food is more than fuel. It's part of celebrations, family traditions, birthdays, holidays, and memories. Enjoying your favorite foods from time to time is completely normal. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is understanding. Because once you understand why certain foods are so difficult to resist, you're no longer relying on willpower alone. You're making informed decisions. And that's the biggest takeaway from today's story. America's most addictive foods aren't powerful because they're evil. They're powerful because they combine science, flavor, convenience, and human psychology in ways our brains naturally respond to. The more you understand that science, the easier it becomes to recognize cravings, make conscious choices, and enjoy food without letting it control you. So the next time you open a bag of chips, pour a glass of soda, or reach for that extra slice of pizza, take a second and ask yourself one simple question: am I eating because my body needs it, or because my brain wants another reward? Sometimes that single question is enough to change the choice you make next. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more evidence-based stories about American food, grocery stores, food science, and the hidden truths behind the products we eat every day, make sure to subscribe to Bite Republic, because the next time you walk through a grocery store, you might not look at the shelves the same way again.